Our reading this morning is from Rays of the One Light, weekly commentary on the Bible and Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. This week's reading is The Infinite Christ. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. The Gospel of St. John contains some of the most profound spiritual teachings in the Bible. In the first chapter, many subtle truths are suggested concerning higher stages of self-realization. Here, John the Baptist is described as one reaching up toward that high state. He was not that light, the Gospel tells us, but was sent to bear witness of that light. Jesus Christ, by contrast, is described as the light itself. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that come into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. One essential truth stands out in this teaching, that Jesus came not to dogmatize people with a new teaching, but to bring them timeless, universal truths. Disciples saw the Master clothed in human form, and therefore judged him in terms of his greatness relative to the greatness of other teachers. Wisdom, however, sees the Master's very greatness in terms of a cosmic unity. There's a passage in the Path by Swami Kriyananda in which this point is emphasized. The Master, Paramhansa Yogananda, explained, "The saint who attains that exalted consciousness never says, 'I am God,' for he sees that it was the vast ocean that became his little wave of ego. The wave, in other words, would not claim, when referring to the little self, to be the ocean." At this juncture, Devi, who was present, cried excitedly, "But sir, if you are one with that ocean, that means you are God." "Why I?" Master asked. "Say he is God." "But still, sir, you are one with him, and he is the only reality. That means you, too, are God." "But this body isn't God. You aren't identified with your body, sir, so one may still say that you are God." "Well, in that case, why do you say you? You, too, are that." In a discussion of this sort, it is less confusing if we say he. "But what's the difference? The scriptures say," Master began. "It's only your humility, sir," Devi broke in, "that makes you distinguish between yourself and him." "How can there be humility when there is no consciousness of ego?" Triumphantly, Devi cried, "But if you have no ego left, that means you are God." Master laughingly continued the earlier statement which Devi had interrupted. "The scriptures say, 'He who knows Brahma becomes Brahma.'" "There," cried Devi, "you said it yourself." Master rejoined, still laughingly, "I didn't say it, it's the scriptures that say so." Master, in other words, would not identify those words with the human body speaking them. It was in his overarching spirit that he saw himself one with the infinite. But Devi was unable to make this mental leap from a pure expression of infinity to infinity itself. "You quoted those scriptures, sir," he reminded Master relentlessly. "That means you agree with them." Recognizing that the distinction was perhaps too subtle for many to grasp, Master concluded, "Well, he who says he is God isn't God." And, he added with a smile, he who says he isn't. And there the subject rested amid general laughter. The greater a spiritual teaching, the more greatly we betray it by particularizing it with dogmas. Truth itself, not the Christian truth or the Hindu truth, incarnates on earth with the birth of a fully liberated Master. As the Bhagavad Gita teaches in the 4th chapter, "Unborn, changeless, Lord of creation, and controller of my cosmic nature though I am, yet entering nature, I am dressed in the cosmic garment of my own Maya, delusion. O Bharata, whenever virtue declines and vice predominates, I incarnate on earth. Taking visible form, I come to destroy evil and reestablish virtue." Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
was waiting to see if somebody else would get up to do the talk, but nobody got up, so. Morning, everyone. It's going to take me a second to get enough room on here for my notes. So we have a big topic today. Christ consciousness, the infinite Christ. I rarely tell jokes at Sunday services because I'm not that great at them, but I'm going to try one today. So there was a rabbi and a Catholic priest, and I have to make a disclaimer. I was not raised a Catholic, so I'm going on faith here that I'm getting this right. And they were talking together about their different progressions of spiritual development and the maybe hierarchy associated with it. So the rabbi was sort of interested in perhaps even needling the priest, and he said, so how does one become a priest? Well, if one loves God very much and wants to serve others and is very good, one becomes a priest. And it says, well, what after that? So he said, well, after that he could become a bishop. And he said, well, what about after that if he keeps growing in spirituality? Well, he could become a cardinal. Very few make it that far, but he could become a cardinal. And he said, well, what after that? If he becomes even more holy than that, what happens then? Well, he becomes the Pope, And he said, yeah, and after that? And the priest got a little exasperated. He said, well, what do you want, Jesus Christ? And the rabbi said, well, one of our boys made it. I like that joke because it kind of goes to the heart of this topic here. And because what we're talking about, or one of the things, this reading has many things that I won't get into, but one of them is, of course, the understanding that yoga gives us, that the teachings of yoga, and even inherent within the teachings of Christianity, although it's been hidden now for many millennia or centuries, is that Christ consciousness is latent within each of us, and each of us has that potential to become the son or daughter of God truly and fully. We are, of course, already, but to awaken into that divine potential. Jesus was not a special creation. If he were a special creation, what hope would he really be giving us if he just arrived on the scene? Jesus was a soul who, like ourselves, came through many incarnations, and through hard work, God's grace, through greater and greater unfoldment of his understanding of that inner divinity, came to the point where he could truly say, I and my Father are one. Yogananda talks here about Christ consciousness in one of his writings. I just want to read it because he says it so much better than I ever could. An ordinary person's consciousness is centered in the brain, and it pours out through the sensory motor nerves into the world, cognizing it with the senses of sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, etc. But the consciousness of Christ, though manifested in the body called Jesus, was not centralized there. His consciousness, instead, was centralized simultaneously in every speck of space throughout the cosmos. God not only knows everything, but he sees, feels, touches, hears, tastes everything, everywhere at the same time. God, being everything and in everything, knows everything now. Since Jesus was in tune with God, the consciousness in him was not centralized in his brain, but imbued every atom of space, including every place on earth. Yogananda also said that for us, our true homeland is infinity, and our true lifespan is eternity. We live many lives on this journey in order to come more and more fully into an understanding of who and what we truly are. I had the blessing a few days ago. Most of you know that one of our dear congregation members, Barbara, I think Vicent, I've never known her. Vicent is Vicent, okay. I thought it was Vicent, but I've been hearing it said Vicent, so I wanted to honor that if that were true. Passed away after receiving a diagnosis of a terminal illness just a few months ago. And she was courageous and joyful throughout that journey. Everyone who knew her knew that she was just a spark of joy always. But she was a very vivacious and active spark of joy. And also she liked to talk and share. But I had the privilege of seeing her. Carol and I went down to see her, and it ended up being just before she left her body. We didn't know that. We left the room, and minutes later, maybe 15 minutes later, maybe only a few, she left her body. But what I wanted to say is that in the time that we were there, we sang to her, chanted. She couldn't chant with us. She was there, ostensibly probably sleeping. But then we started to meditate. And I felt the greatest sense of dynamic peace in that room. Suddenly it filled the room, and there was this palpable sense of a kind of a stillness that I didn't normally associate with Barbara. And I thought, this is her soul. It was of such a magnitude that it filled the room, and I kept wanting to meditate, but her sister was there, so I opened my eyes to see whether this was okay with her. She was sitting rock still. It was such a beautiful moment, but it reminded me anew of how we don't know, in essence, who other people are, and truly, fully, and we don't know who we are. And yet these teachings remind us that we are that spark of the infinite, and the more that we can uncover that, the more we too will feel our affinity with everything in life. We'll be able to experience the totality of creation and the joy that lies therein. Sometimes our consciousness, the consciousness of most people on this earth, is centered in the ego, that mistaken identification of the soul solely, what's another way of putting that, only with the body that we happen to be in, and the personality and the likes and dislikes that it has formed over incarnations. Yogananda used to liken that experience to maybe the windows of a church, beautiful stained glass windows, and how if the windows are caked with mud, you see that light of divinity, that light of Christ, that light of superconsciousness is always shining upon us. It shines upon us, it shines upon the lowly moth, it shines upon the coal. And the difference is our ability to receive it and transmit it. So if those windows are caked over with the crust of mud of our delusions of separateness, our delusions of the habits and the things, the way we think things should be, our interpretations of situations as being good or bad for the ego, then we might only see or feel a tiny bit of warmth from that sun, because in effect we've shut it out through our own self-enclosed darkness. As we begin to work on ourselves and begin to consciously want to open up, the rain of God's grace, the arms of our own washing of those windows starts to let in more light, so that perhaps we see it a little more. We see it, but it's a little bit dim. It's still filtered by those likes and dislikes. And I'm sure there's everyone in this room. I know I myself have had situations where I could feel that light was trying to come into me, but I wasn't ready. I didn't want to. I didn't want to let go of whatever that was. Sorrow, anger, justification, whatever, a desire for something that was holding me small and keeping that window kind of shuttered. In the masters, those windows are perfectly clear. That's why a Jesus, a Yogananda, a Buddha have that ability to just transmit that light, and everyone who comes in contact with them feels that light. But that light is, as the reading says, the light which is within each man and woman, each child, each particle of creation. So when we know, when we hear and understand that inherent within us is that divinity, that Christ consciousness is our birthright, we have a choice. We can say, like St. Augustine once said, God, make me perfect, but not yet. But I think those who come here on a Sunday morning and give up the opportunity to sleep in or whatever, watch a ball game, read a book, go out to brunch, we're yearning for something, aren't we? We feel the pull of that divinity, and we want to be encouraged in our search to uncover those windows because we feel inside of us that there's more. We just know it. That's our soul speaking to us. So what do we do to get there? Well, this is the fun part because there's so much that we can do. The Bible says, to as many as received him, to them gave he the power to become the sons of God. And what does that mean to us? Well, to those who are awake and ready, and isn't this a perfect time of year to just rededicate ourselves and keep those reminders? One of the things, of course, that we want to do is to, well, first of all, actually, let me say this. Those who have been coming here for more than a week or two have cottoned on to the fact that we do a ceremony each week called the Festival of Light. And in that ceremony it says plainly, let us celebrate our own greater reality. For now the keys to our awakening, our redemption are at hand. In the past our redemption came through suffering, and now it comes through calm acceptance and joy. So all through the Festival of Light, there are beautiful hints. That's one of the first ones, to try and live in joy, no matter what is happening. There's a Buddhist saying, I think it is, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So to take those situations in which we could cave in and to try and find a little nugget of joy to hold on to. Yogananda talks about taking a bubble of joy and blowing on it, increasing it until it becomes our reality. There are many, many things here. So we're going to be singing a song about the power of Om, the thunder of Om. Out of the silence came the song of creation. Out of the darkness came the light. And then we'll have the opportunity to invoke Om, that power of the universe, to replenish us. So replenishing that sense of inner divinity daily through our meditation. There's a part in the Festival of Light where there's a bird. And I don't know about you, but there have been many times when I've thought, oh, this is silly. And in the next moment I think, oops, that sounds familiar. I am that bird. And so as we go through the day-to-day struggles of our lives, we are told through this little allegorical story of many things. We are told that when we try and keep things for ourselves, when we try and hold on to the little ego, happiness eludes us. Our ability to expand our consciousness eludes us. We are told that when we think that we're doing everything by our own power, we can't do it because we need to tap into, and that's one of the ways to draw on that greater power and consciousness of God. We're told that when we surrender into that greater consciousness, we are given a newborn strength. And then we can realize that everything that comes to us is there to strengthen us. Not just our resolve and our will, but to strengthen our understanding of the fragileness of this earthly life, of the fragileness of our ego, of the fragility of everything that we think might be us, and to strengthen our commitment to and our identification with our soul nature. This, of course, does take willpower, and we have the opportunity through the part where we commit ourselves, where we look into the light, when they're holding up the candle, and we vow with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my strength, heart, soul, strength, all my mind, I choose thy love, I choose only thee. It's a wonderful thing to affirm every day when you get up. There's I don't know if she's here today, I'm not going to say her name, but there was a time a number of years ago, 15, maybe 20 years ago, when there was a little bit of controversy between some people in the congregation. And one person was railing against what he thought was something unrighteous happening between two people. And was starting to get negative about it, even though it wasn't really his issue. And I remember this person saying to him, I choose love. He was trying to get her on his side. And she said, I'm choosing love. I'm choosing to stand in love, not in judgment. And that touched me so much that it made me think, yeah, this is something I can do, not just on Sunday. I can do this every day to make that declaration to myself, to make it real, to make it powerful. The enemies of our expanding consciousness are those things which cause our energy to sink back. Lack of effort on our part is one of them. Selfishness is another. Judgment is another. And so in this time period at the beginning of the year, it's a wonderful time to give an extra boost to our meditations, to think about cleaning up our altar, to think about varying our meditation routine if you're a long-time meditator, to pull out a new inspiring book to read and to keep it really fresh. I promised myself for a while, I'm a great video watcher at the end of the day. I usually work quite long days, and so sometimes at 10 o'clock at night, to rest my mind, I'll go on PBS and watch a little show or something, usually something kind of harmless. But no, really always harmless, but still harmless in a sense that they're not negative. But they didn't necessarily uplift my consciousness or awaken in me, cultivate in me that desire for greater awareness. And so I decided during the period of Christmas that I wasn't going to do that anymore. And so I'd find myself kind of weary at the end of the day. And what I started to do instead was to read Jyotishan Devi's book of blogs called Touch of Light, which I highly, highly recommend. They're very short. They're just a page or two. But what it did was to turn my consciousness in an uplifted way. And so I went into my meditation and into my sleep in a more uplifted state. And that's one of the values of satsang, gathering together with those of like mind and drawing upon the consciousness of the masters, of the great ones, of the great saints, drawing God's consciousness to us so we can do it with each other when we relate in a conscious way, and we can do it through the words or sometimes the music of those who have consciously sought God and received a very powerful response. So just a plug, to go get a beautiful book and to have it on your bedside, carry it with you, and in those moments when you're tired, to use it to uplift yourself. And there's also a part where we offer everything we have, our little light, into the blazing light of infinity. And that speaks to several things too. It speaks to living more by inner guidance. I like to think, I work serve in our school, have for several years, and we don't have crossing guards, but there's that whole thing of stop, look, and listen. And I really like that little 3-word phrase, to stop the restless mind, to look inside, to listen to inner guidance. In other words, to offer up whatever we're doing, and to think, is this bringing me closer to God? Is this what you want? Is this expanding my consciousness, or is it making it small again? I'm going to say two more things. One of which is that we're talking today about the Christ within. And of course, those of us who have been meditating here for a while know that as part of that, we seek to encourage all of our energy to travel up to this center, the Christ center, the third eye. It's called by many names, but it's the part in the body, and science shows that this is related even physically to I think it's the pineal gland, that where the center of even human higher awareness is. But this is where our contact with divine awareness happens. Jyotish Novak, the director of Ananda Worldwide, encouraged people at our last Spiritual Renewal Week to try and live more from this point. It was one of the things that Yogananda said, and just to try and keep your consciousness there daily, to do that strongly at the end of your meditation, and to carry it throughout your day. And when you find yourself starting to sink a little bit, to bring the mind there. I wanted to end with just a little nod to things that are happening in our world right now. Another blessing that I've had recently was to be a part of our Martin Luther King Jr. celebration, which happened on Monday night, and we had the school kids, the school children, the upper elementary and middle school children, reading passages from the lives of Gandhi and Dr. King, but also reading their words. And interspersed with that, the choir was able to sing some of the songs that we sang for you today, one we already sang and one we will sing. But as the world is changing a bit and we're entering into a time period, or have entered into a time period where there seems to be so much divisiveness, I'm starting to see some of even my most mild-mannered friends become kind of militant. And of course, we need to, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, he heard God's voice say, "Martin, stand up for what's right." And I thought that was interesting. I've been pondering that, because one of the things that I think is true is that not everyone is called inwardly to take action outwardly. But all of us, of course, are called to stand up inwardly for what's right. And what does that mean? Well, it means first and foremost, there's a great book, another Buddhist book called Don't Just Do Something, Sit There. And it means, it's telling us that changing consciousness is the most important thing that we can do to help our world. Jesus said before, kingdoms can change, men must change. And so we want to make sure that whatever we do, whether we're doing something to offer another viewpoint, whether we're doing something with coworkers, whatever it is, making sure that our consciousness is uplifted and that we are including others in our reality, even as we offer another viewpoint. Yogananda, Jyotish and Devi sent out a lovely letter a few weeks ago. It's a letter from Yogananda, and I just want to read just a little bit of it. To my friends in all lands, this was written in November of 1933. To my friends in all lands and in all worlds, greetings and goodwill wherever you are, whoever you are, of whatever color, race, or creed. I send you my love and the pledge of my loyalty. You who for thousands of years or for only a day have worked and fought for justice, freedom, and truth, receive my gratitude and devotion. Although I see you not, I often feel your presence near, or thrill with the noble thoughts which you send out to find their home in minds attuned to yours. Although you may never read the words which I am penning now, I declare to you that you shall feel the vibrations of tenderness and kindliness which emanate from me to all of you. Our work, our love, our purposes are one. March on, dear friends, to higher, brighter goals. Continue in your dreams of happier days and in your deeds of service. Protect the torch of faith from winds of doubt, and let no storm disturb your peace of mind. Farewell, dear friends of mine, until we meet. I'd like to just end with passage through from Yogananda's Whispers from Eternity. Make me thy butterfly of eternity. I have burnt my past, destroying every seed of evil destiny. I have stridden bravely through the strewn ashes of my past and future fears. I am the eternal now, having torn to shreds my enclosing cocoon of ignorance with the sharp knife of free will. Now I am thy soaring butterfly of eternity, flitting freely through immeasurable skies of time. The beauty of my wings I spread out through nature everywhere. My wings are sprinkled with suns and stardust. Lo, I am beautiful. May every silken thread that shrouded my past folly be severed forever. See, they trail me now, only adding to my beauty as I wing my way to my own self in thee.